Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of our Let's Play of Crusader Kings 2. This is, I guess, less of a Let's Play and more of like a Nerdstalgic splains is kind of what I've named it. Splains being the shorthand for X-splains. This series is a strictly, I would say, tutorial in nature. There's no real goal here in so much as what we want to do with our character. We don't have a goal to, like, form Britannia or anything like that. The goal for this is to educate. We are going to try and help you guys who maybe don't know a whole lot about Crusader Kings 2 but are very interested in it. My goal is to help you guys to educate yourselves and to derive more enjoyment out of this game. I have spent hundreds and hundreds of hours in it, and we all had to start somewhere. It's not like I immediately picked up the game and knew exactly what I was doing, so just stick with it, guys. I know there's a lot to it. Anyways, so bad/good news, I guess, for those of you who are fans of this series. Today I was recording on Twitch some Let's Play videos, and unfortunately I forgot to save a local recording of those 4 videos. RIP! What that means is that I have either the option of continuing that series with a fairly large gap between one episode to the next, or I can end that series and instead convert this over to my primary Crusader Kings 2 series, which is what I'm going to be doing. So these Nerdstalgic Splains Crusader Kings 2 videos are going to be coming out on a daily basis. They will be replacing the other Crusader Kings 2 Conclave series in the 6 p.m. time slot. So from now on, you can be looking for these to come out after this video hits at 6 p.m. That's 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, so if you're Eastern, that would be 7 p.m. If you're Pacific, that would be, 4 p.m. If you're, I don't know, Korean Standard Time, what would that be right now? Something like 15 hours ahead, so what's 6 is 9 a.m. in the morning, something like that. So, and if you're in, I don't know, if you're somewhere, if like you're in London, it's probably going to be something like midnight. I think London is like 6 hours ahead of where I am. So, all right, well, in our first 4 episodes, we took the time to explain the menus, the buttons. Up here, we explained this little section here. We went over this part. We went over this part, the different map modes. So now we're going to actually be playing the game instead of talking about playing the game and talking about the different systems in the game. So we are King Merchant of Mumu. So this is Mumu is our duchy. If you have an older, not necessarily an older version of the game, but if you have a version of the game that is lacking DLC, this might be called a different name. It might be Munster. I did hear a few people, they were watching some older Let's Play series, and before there were certain DLCs that have introduced new naming conventions and things, and back then it would have been called Munster. So, but since I'm up to date on all the DLCs, and this is now and not in 2014 or 2013, because this game's been out for quite a while, it is now known as Mumu. Alright, so we briefly looked at this screen, but we didn't really dive in on it. And the reason for that was I knew that once we started the game, we were going to be taking a little bit more of a close-up look at this screen, because it would be necessary then. So let's just start addressing these alerts up here. Now, whenever something pops up here, I would advise you to check it out. The reason that these things are popping up at the top of your screen is because these are what the game has hard-coded as important events or important things that are going on in your kingdom. So you want to keep track of these. So generally at all times, you will see me as I play the game. I'm keeping up with these. Sometimes I will dismiss them if it's something that I don't particularly care about, or if it's something that I know will go away. And you will see that happen, certainly, as we play in this series. So let's start with this first alert. It says, one children, great English, one children that lack a childhood focus. So with the addition of Conclave, how you educate your children has changed. So for those of you who are maybe watching this and are wanting to learn about the education system, this may not be the best way for you to learn, because Conclave changed it fairly radically and made it a bit more, what I would say, complex. Under the old system, just to kind of give you an example, if you had a child that you wanted to make into somebody who would be a very good steward with really high stewardship, what you would do is you would find them an educator who had a stewardship trait such as Midas Touched or Fortune Builder, and you would assign that person to tutor them, and then when they turned 16, there would be a pretty good chance that they would gain that trait from that educator. And also there was a pretty good chance that they would pick up some of the positive and negative traits that educator has as well. Of course, it was random. Now it's a little bit different. In fact, it's a lot different. Now children actually get focuses just like adults do. I guess you'd say the positive of this is that you get to focus a child's development a little bit more on specific areas. The negative to this is that you don't quite get as many positive traits. That children will not have as many traits when they turn 16 as they would have before, potentially. It also gives a greater amount of focus on the correct use of focuses as adults too, to round out your character. But anyway, so we're going to take a look at this. So this is Merchad McAid, just a courtier, so not anybody even in my dynasty. We click on this button here to choose a focus. So you're going to see this screen pop up. Now, this kid is 6. Already kind of looks like they're having a lean towards diplomacy and stewardship. They have 3 points each in those, 1 point in the rest. Each one of these different focuses here is going to have a chance to give some traits to the child as they develop. So let's just go through here and take a look at them, starting with heritage. Heritage is a little bit different than all the other traits, and I think you'll see why after I read this to you. So if we choose heritage, Merchad, right here, Merchad, not to be confused with this Merchad. This Merchad is tutored by various courtiers and family members, focusing on assimilating Irish culture and the Catholic faith. No specific traits are associated with this focus. So if you take this focus, basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to make damn sure that this person ends up becoming your culture and your religion. But as far as getting traits, there will be none. Faith, Merchad would be tutored by priests focusing on the Catholic faith and religious learning. A common trait outcome for this focus is idolizer. And you can see this is the focus right here. Idolizer. This child is easily impressed and also has a fervent desire to seek for ultimate truths. With this, the child would get a +1 to learning. Duty. Merchad is tutored by guards and retainers at court, focusing on duty and diligence. A common trait outcome for this focus is conscientious. Conscientious. This child is unusually scrupulous and responsible, taking delight in completing any chores and tasks to perfection. +1 stewardship. Thrift. Merchad is tutored by artisans and merchants, focusing on mathematics and invention. Common outcomes for this focus are curious and fussy. Curious. This child has an inquisitive nature and is constantly asking questions and poking around looking for new and interesting things. Learning +1. Fussy. This child is very particular about details which seem trivial to others, sometimes to the point of causing anxiety and frustration. So if we can already see a little bit of a difference here between this one and these ones that we just saw. No traits, one trait, 2 potential traits. Interesting. We'll come back to that. Pride. Murchad is tutored by counselors and noblemen, being groomed for rulership. Common trait outcomes for this focus are haughty, and brooding. Haughty. This child is proud and vain, convinced of their own superiority. +1 martial. Brooding. This child is a quiet thinker, often sitting inside deep ponderings as others play outside in the sun. Intrigue +1. Struggle. Murchad is very loosely tutored, chiefly being left to his own devices and competing with other children. Common trait outcomes for this focus are rowdy and willful. Rowdy. This child is loud and lively and usually prefers rough physical activity over calmer pursuits. Martial +1. Willful. This child is stubborn and strong-willed and doesn't obey or give way easily. Intrigue +1. Etiquette. Murchad is tutored by counselors and other courtiers, focusing on courteous behavior and etiquette. Common trait outcomes for this focus are playful and indolent. Playful. This child loves to engage in fun and games, almost always turning any activity into an excuse to play. +1 diplomacy. Indolent. This child is very averse to any kind of exertion, be it mental or physical. Intrigue +1. I like the little pig. I think that's a pig at least. It looks kind of like a pig. Humility. Murchad is tutored by servants at court, focusing on service and humility. Common trait outcomes for this focus are timid and affectionate. Timid. This child is shy and quiet and usually avoids open conflicts. Learning +1. Affectionate. This child is kind and quick to show love and affection. Diplomacy +1. Now, each child that comes into your court, you're going to get to do this for. It used to be that you only got to educate children of your direct line, but now you get to actually educate a wider variety of children. Generally, there are some rules of thumb, some things that we have figured out since Conclave has come out. The two arguably most powerful at this moment, because Paradox has already said that they're going to add more traits. The two arguably most powerful ones at this moment for you to give to anybody are thrift and struggle. Let me explain why. Thrift is very, very good because one of these outcomes, curious, can actually evolve into, as the child ages, a higher form of intelligence. Now that doesn't mean like an alien. What it means is that curious can actually go into quick or genius, which is a very big deal. Also worth noting is that fussy, the other outcome, if you put them with an educator, so you still have the option to assign them to an educator. If you stick them with an educator once they're 12, that is diligent, they can intervene on this fussy trait and they can change it into diligent, which is another really good trait. Struggle is another powerful one, but not, I would argue it's not quite as good as duty. The reason for that is rowdy can also morph into strong. Strong is another eugenic trait or congenital trait in the game that typically is only passed down from people who are born strong or born geniuses. The reason that strong and genius are so good is because they give a large amount of stats, and also strong and genius both have a bonus to how your vassals feel about you. So that's pretty big. Rowdy can become strong, but rowdy can also become slow. So you're kind of gambling a little bit there. And willful I'm not really too sure what willful can be educated into. If you're interested in knowing specifically, you probably want to keep open the CK2 wiki page to the Conclave Education. Let me see if I can bring that up real quick. I should have it bookmarked or something. Alright, so let me see if I can capture this. Get a screen capture here. Alright. This is the... I'm sorry about that down at the bottom, but this is the education page for Conclave on the CK2 wiki, and it explains it pretty well. But basically there are two phases. You have the childhood focus that goes from 6 to 12, and so there it explains the likely childhood traits that we talked about, and there are also some notes. Should be chosen if a child is to receive a martial education. Struggle. Faith should be chosen if you want to give a child a learning education. If you want to try to give them a stewardship education, you could go thrift. You could also go duty, but duty is kind of a gamble. Then we go down here and you can see what the different traits can become as an adult. So as I had mentioned, rowdy. The adult traits are strong and honest, both of which are pretty good. However, you can see there are some that are not quite so good that you will definitely want to have guardian intervention on, such as haughty, which you would get from the pride focus. The adult traits for haughty that this can turn into are proud, which is not horrible, but it's not great. Arbitrary, which is terrible. And cruel, which is terrible. But if somebody has this childhood trait and you catch that, you stick them with a guardian, an educator who has ambitious, and what will happen is there's a chance that instead of them getting one of these traits, because these traits they will change. They will not have these as adults. They'll become something else. So there's a chance that the guardian will step in, and instead of them becoming proud or cruel, they'll change it to ambitious, which is better in terms of stats, but certainly dangerous in its own right. Other ones that are worth watching out for, timid is specifically why it's so good to give your vassals humility. Because you can have somebody that's content guardian them, and they will change to content, which is very good. If you can see here, fussy. If you don't intervene on fussy, it will become patient, greedy, or paranoid. Greedy's not too good. Paranoid's not too good. Patient's not too bad, but I think we can all agree that diligent is much, much better than these. Diligent is good because it gives you like a +1 to all your stats. So, anyways. And then there are some strategies down here. It says delay picking an education focus until 15, which is a bit risky. I wouldn't advise that to a new player simply because you'll probably just forget. And then it gives some kind of reasoning. Choose thrift often, humility for vassals, don't do pride, avoid etiquette, conscientious is a double-edged sword, and then it tells you which guardians you should intervene with. So anyways, I would highly recommend as a new player that you do keep this open as you play Conclave. Okay, let's go back to... Let's go ahead and I'm going to remove that scene because I don't think I'll use it anymore. So this is a courtier. This is somebody who is not going to be, not necessarily going to be somebody that is going to be in power, But since we're so small, it would be really, really nice if we could get some more people in here with either strong or genius. So what I'm going to do is, hold on just one second while I get rid of that timer. I'm actually going to give them struggle in hopes that we can make them, this person strong, and maybe we could have a good commander or marshal on our hands here. Now, since there's 6, I'm going to go ahead and assign an educator here, but it's not like a necessary thing. And as you can see, most of the people we have here are not very good. We do have one skilled tactician, and you want to be careful with your educator. You want to assign them to an educator with the culture that you want them to have. So being that our culture is Irish, we're going to assign Murchad here to an Irishman. So I guess this would be, is this Sean? And then send. And that's done. Okay, so that takes care of the child. Now, we need to pick a focus as well. So a focus as an adult is primarily a way for you to shore up or improve stats that you find are sorely lacking in your character. Now, if we look at our stats, our diplomacy is terrible. It's a 2. Diplomacy affects character's opinion of you. It also is very important for a chancellor, but it also affects how many vassals you can have under you. Now, being that we're so small, this isn't something we're going to be worrying about for a really long time. So that kind of maybe takes a little bit of emphasis off of diplomacy at this point because we don't have a lot of vassals. So it's not necessarily as important as it would be if we were bigger. Marshal is 9, so okay, you know, that's okay. Stewardship also 9 is okay. Intrigue is a 7, which is a little bit not. It's kind of bad, but being so small, the chance of anybody plotting against us is pretty low. And our learning is an 8, which, to be honest, isn't really that bad for a starting point. Now, martial affects the amount of troops you can have, your levies. So the higher your martial, the more levies you're going to have, and it's pretty drastic. Stewardship affects how much gold you bring in, but also it affects how many counties you can hold personally. As you can see, we can only hold 3 right now, but as our stewardship skill goes up, our personal and our kingdom, that's what these numbers in the bracket are. The numbers in the bracket are our stat total for our kingdom, which is the sum of our score, the score of our counselor, and half of our spouse's score. So I think what we're going to do here, early in the game, the 2 most important stats for anybody are going to be martial and stewardship. And really for us, since we are probably going to be warring sooner rather than later, martial is going to be very important. So we are going to take, we have 2 options. We can do hunting focus or we can do a war focus. Let me talk a little bit about these focuses as adults before we pick one. So as you can see, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different categories of foci or focuses. The color corresponds to the different categories. So we have blue for diplomacy, white for learning, green for money, green for stewardship, purple for intrigue, and red for martial. Each one of these focuses comes with a set of events that can happen that will boost the stat that you're focusing. It also will have other events that can happen as well. Most of the focuses have some pretty neat stuff that it will allow you to do. So we'll just start here with carousing and work our way clockwise. So carousing, it says King Murchad strives to become more popular and outgoing by hosting wild parties. This focus unlocks the invite to carousing option versus suitable targets. And it also gives us a +3 diplomacy the moment that we choose it. So This would be good if we wanted to get our diplomacy up. What carousing is. Carousing is basically where you get to have like a party. You get to click on somebody's portrait that's in your kingdom, and you get to invite them to a party. And you can have these parties like once every year and a half. And when they come to these parties, it basically just gives you some prestige, and it strengthens the bonds between the people that come to the party. Now, just because you invite them doesn't mean they'll come. So, anyways, it's pretty good if you have a bigger kingdom and you're wanting to make sure that your vassals like you. Family is the next one. King Murchad concentrates on family life, ensuring better relations between all family members. So we'd get a +2 diplomacy, a +25% chance to fertility, and a +1 to health. So it's a little bit more well-rounded. Family is a pretty good focus to pick when you want to pop out some kids, when you want to survive, and also it can be a really, really good focus to have if you had like a king level title and your people under you you had multiple kids and your inheritance was going to get split between them. It would be a good way to go to try to make friends between your kids so that whenever the inheritance actually came through, they would like each other and they wouldn't just start fighting each other for the realm. So both of these are pretty good. I tend to like family more than I like carousing, but I think I like it because of the health bump. The health bump and the fertility bump can be very, very powerful. Theology. King Murchad leads a religious life of contemplation, prayer, and meditation. Learning +2, temple vassal opinion +20. From what I've seen, this focus is really at its best when you need to get a lot of piety quickly, and you don't have money is no object, because it opens up a plot, an event that you can go on called a pilgrimage, and you can take a pilgrimage where you basically swap money for piety, and you get some really neat events from it. So other than that, I don't really see any purpose in taking it. Temple vassal opinion, to me at least, I think it's kind of worthless. So yeah. Scholarship. This is a focus that I've really came around on and started liking. King Murchad buries his nose in dusty old tomes, seeking knowledge and learning. Learning +3. Now, learning is important, as we said, because a higher learning means you gain technology faster. If you have higher technology than your opponents, especially in war, then that could be all the edge you need to defeat them. But what really makes scholarship awesome, in my opinion, is that you get to build a thing called an observatory. And it costs 50 gold. And when you build the observatory, it sets you on this event chain where you get to pick 2 different paths. There's a path at the start, you'll know it because you'll get 10 prestige, and it'll say, basically like, what's out there in the stars. That's what people call like the normal path. And then there's another path where the guy says, well, is there something strange out there? And you only get 5 prestige for that one. The normal path is more of a path where you get normalish events, and you're just going to end up getting a lot of military technology points. Like, you're going to have multiple events where you're going to get military tech, which is really good. If you go down the other path, it's a little bit more fun because you end up getting the Necronomicon and you get a bunch of cultural technology points. But you kind of have to be a little bit careful with both paths because the Pope doesn't really like it when you do the learning. And there are certain decisions that you can make which will brand you as a heretic. Because basically, I don't want to spoil it for you, but basically you discover things that a lot of other people don't believe is real during this time. So anyways, learning is pretty cool. Pretty cool path. Business. King Murchad fraternizes with burghers and merchants, seeking to unravel the enigma of gold. Stewardship +2, city vassal opinion +20. This is not a bad focus. This is not a bad focus, but you need to be careful with it because it's usually a one-way ticket to stressed. There's a trait called stressed, and when you get stressed, you get like a negative to health and a negative to all your stats. It's terrible. But on the plus side, the business focus is really, really good for making money quickly. There's like an event in the business focus where you have a chance to basically make fake coins and you get like 100 gold and 100 prestige. And then down the road, there's a chance that somebody finds out, oh, those coins were fake, but they don't take the money away from you. They just take prestige. So you're like, well, I don't care. So prestige is pretty easy to come by, really. You just fight battles. But money can be a little bit harder to come by. So anyways, the +2 stewardship is decent, and the +20 city vassal opinion, I mean, that bumps up how your mayors feel about you. And your mayors pay a lot of tax, so if they like you more, they pay more tax. So it's not too bad. Rulership, King Murchad spends his time and effort trying to govern well. It's +3 stewardship. This will focus all around just being a better ruler, a better duke, a better king. And you'll just get events that will you get stressed with this one too, but I've found that it's not quite as bad as it is with the other one. You can get depressed too, which is not good. But you just get a bunch of events where you'll have events that'll pop up where you have to make choices between, like, you know, this farmer says that this mayor's horse trampled his crops, and you have to make like a wise, like King Solomon-esque type decisions and stuff, and then you have a random chance to gain stewardship from it. So yeah, this is probably one of my most used focuses because stewardship is so important when you want to get bigger, because you want to have that high stewardship so you can personally hold more counties. Because that's how you make sure that you have a lot of soldiers, is by personally holding counties. Well, if you don't have a high stewardship, then you're not going to be able to hold very many counties. And then your vassals are going to have way more soldiers than you, and then if they get upset with you, then what's going to happen is basically they're going to faction against you and probably take over. So intrigue focus. Got intrigue here. It says King Murchad seeks to become a better schemer, spending most of his time engrossed in court intrigue. This focus unlocks the spy on and free from captivity options versus suitable targets. Intrigue +3. So this is pretty interesting. Spy on lets you spy on, as you would think, other people. You can spy on people in other countries. And what happens is you'll get random events to spy on them. And there can even be events happen to where you can kill them for a very, very low amount of money. I mean, it's like 5 gold or something. It's kind of random. I mean, it is random, and it's kind of rare to have that event happen, but that is something that can happen from spy on. You can also use this on vassals that you might have that you want to get at. You don't want them to... Maybe you want a reason to arrest them. You can spy on them to see if they're up to any nefarious deeds, or you can actually make stuff up too. But if you make stuff up, there's always the chance that it won't stick, you know. But if you get the real dirt, yeah. So, and then free from captivity will allow you to actually free people from other people's prisons, if they can be freed. So, seduction. This is a popular one. King Murchad hones his skills of attraction for thrills and power. This focus unlocks the seduce option versus suitable targets. Gives you a +2 to intrigue, +25% fertility, and +10 to sex appeal. So sex appeal means like just what you think it would be. Women and homosexual men would be more attracted to somebody who had the seduction focus. Seduction focus can be good because you can use it basically to make somebody fall in love with you, and then you can invite them back to court. And you know, like if somebody has some claims that you want, but they won't come to your court, you could seduce them, and then they will come to your court because they're in love with you, and then, you know, then you just do what you want with them, basically. Seduction can... I feel like seduction is very, very strong for both men and women, but I feel like it really shines on the female characters, especially. So, yeah. Typically, I don't really use a whole lot of seduction, but I know I have friends who play and they really enjoy it. Hunting. King Murchad travels the realm, making friends and killing off God's creatures. +2 martial, +1 health. This is probably my second most used focus. Seems like we always need more martial because more troops are good, and having that health enables you to live longer. Basically, through hunting, you'll get a series of events called like an epic hunt. You'll have a chance to have that happen every year, where you, depending on where you are in the world, you'll have this hunt where you'll go hunting like a white deer or a white bear or a white tiger, and if you end up catching it, you become like the hunter, and you get like a massive amount of prestige, and you become like a master hunter, and you get more martial. Also, one of the things you get with the hunting focus, every time you take the hunting focus, you'll always get somebody will give you a hunting dog, and the hunting dog gives you another +1 to health. So for a while you take hunting, you'll have a +2 to health, and you have to train the hunting dog. So there's a chance that when you train the hunting dog outside, you can also gain strong. And the hunting dog also counteracts like stressed and depressed. So if you have the hunting dog, there's a really high chance that you will lose stressed or depressed. So a lot of times what will happen is, you know, if I'm up here doing one of these and I become stressed or depressed, you might see me swap down to hunting. Now, you can only get one hunting dog in your life, but still. And then war, just a flat +3 to martial. It says engages in all things martial, from melee training to reading the works of ancient generals. This focus unlocks the dual action versus rivals and foes. So what you can do is you can duel people that are your rivals or are your foes, and that's based on your personal combat skills. So also it'll unlock random events that can boost your martial and your personal combat skills. So like I said, this one, and this one are probably my 3 most used, followed closely by this one. I almost never use this one, or this one, or this one. This one I use some, this one I use some, and this one I use some too. So, but that's just my play style. You know, experiment around and see what you like. I would say as a new player, I probably would shy away more from this stuff and go for more like this stuff and this stuff, but whatever. So what we're going to do with this guy, now that we've looked at all the focuses, is we're going to go hunting. So we select hunting, and as you can see, it says you will not be able to change focus again for 5 years. We hit select, and then immediately we will get a +2 bonus to martial, so we'll be up to 11 martial, and we'll have an additional +1 to health, and that'll show up down here. Okay, well, we should probably put a cut in there, and in the next video we're going to continue to look at these alerts, and then we're going to unpause the game. Yay! So thank you guys so much for joining me, and until next time, game on.